Hello, everybody, and welcome to this mini meetup. Now, this is again a new setup that I'm trying, so I appreciate you letting me know in the chat if you can hear me fine, if you can see me fine before we bring out the first speaker. Thank you all for coming here. I think it's pretty nice to have such a nice crowd of people online here in the same chat room. Let's see. Loving the beard. Yeah, I should uh, shave myself probably this weekend or something. Okay, perfect quality. So I think we're good to go. We have two guests today on our stream. The first one is, or let's start with the second one. The second one is Nuno. He's going to talk about pests in half an hour. But my first guest, my first ever guest on this little meetup thing, is Jmac, and let's bring him on the screen. Hi, Jmac. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hey, how's your week
Hopefully
been?
It's been pretty good. Busy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
getting hot here too. It's like hitting the 90s Fahrenheit. So
How I don't know what that is in centigrade. Is that like 30 or
90
something? Like,
centigrade would be, yeah, you'd be melting.
oh my god, I don't like the heat. You can keep the heat, man.
Yeah.
Hey, what
Cool.
are you going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about Shift, but specifically the Workbench. I'm going to do like a little demo,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll jump into the code because I think the code's more fun. You and I were talking about that kind of during the test trial run.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we'll just kind of see how far we get. So maybe a 5 minute demo of what the workbench is for those that aren't familiar, and then
Okay.
maybe like 10 minutes on the code.
Okay, let's do it. Let me try to put your screen on the stream, and I think people can see your screen now. That's a beautiful homepage of Laravel Shift. Take it away, man.
All right, cool. Yeah, we're still rocking the original Jack McDade uh, design here. So homepage is all good. So Shift, of course, if you're not familiar, is automated upgrade services for your Laravel applications. So you can basically, if you're running 5.2 still or something crazy old like that, you can jump in and run any shift and get up to the latest version, which right now is 7x. So, but recently I felt like there was a need and kind of a gap for some things uh, that you might want to do maybe one-off, like your day-to-day kind of stuff. So I came up with this workbench, and it's funny because it was actually like an idea that I've had for a long time, and kind of like the App Store, I wanted to open it up to developers to kind of make your own shift. But the overhead and like the ecosystem for that is crazy. It was a little too ambitious. So I backed off and I let this thing kind of like marinate for like 2 years. And just the other week or the month, I had some people kind of ask about it again. And I think this is kind of the evolution of that, at least the first evolution. I may still eventually get to that shift store marketplace kind of thing, but for now, we're starting with the workbench. And so what this is it's modeled off kind of GitHub Actions. So you got this little editor on the left of some YAML, and you've got all these different tasks on the right that you can run. And I think Frake, you'll probably appreciate this with the Spatie packages because there's one in here that I thought of you. So we got this composer, and you can add and remove dependencies, but there's also a bump Laravel dependencies and
Oh
package
yeah,
dependencies. So you would be
nice.
able to go in and dump this in there and basically say, hey, we're going to version 8, shift, workbench, figure out all my Illuminate and all these, orchestral test bench, and it's just going to know what versions of those for version 8 for all 2 million of your packages.
Cool,
So
man.
so yeah, so things like that, like day-to-day, updates are all the things in the workbench that we do. So let's just run a quick little demo here, and we'll do something workbench demo. We'll just give it a little name. Let me clear out these old tasks. I've run this myself multiple times. You can see just even on my own projects. So again, it's just kind of something that I would dog food anyway. So you've got something like code format. We can adopt the Laravel standard here. And let's do some more stuff. Let's do the short array syntax, and we'll see which one of these actually work. Global facades is something I like, so I get the nice completion in the IDE instead of referencing the global names. Again, not sure which one of these will work in my little sample project, but let's just add a couple of them. What else we got? Oh, there's a really nice one that I like, the env to config helper. Let's run this. And then let's do something a little more common, maybe like dependency. Let's add one of those composer dependencies. And we'll
Uh,
add that. Go ahead.
Jmac, could you make it a little bit bigger? Some people have troubles seeing the small letters.
Oh, okay. Like maybe like just zoom in the browser, maybe?
Yeah, that's better. That's better. Thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got this little demo, and we're going to do some Laravel code styles. We can do PSR12, PSR2, or you can even put your custom one in. So if you have a .php.cs file, this can basically run the code format for you. And then we just got a couple other things here too. And let's do this. Let's add a dependency. And let's add, what were we working on the other day, Frake? We were working on the Spassy, what was that called? Laravel collection
Laravel,
macros?
Laravel collection macros. That's right.
And is it Spassy or like Spassy BE?
Spassy. That's right. That's the good
Okay.
package name you have there.
And then I don't know what version you're on. Oh man. Let's go find out. Laravel collection macro. There they are. What's the latest version? Make sure we get our cool stuff. So 7.0. All right, cool. Hey, look at that. It's already 7.0. That's just coincidence. It wasn't that smart. All right, anyway, let's move my little video out of the way so I can see. Okay, so we've got everything we want to run in the workbench. This is just like a little build that we're going to do. And the nice thing is that I can go and apply this to like as many repos as possible. So I just have a little sample repo, but again, if you're someone like Frake, you could dump all your connection strings in here for all your different packages. So you can really manage a lot of repos at once you kind of have this little build you want to do. So this is, let's do JSON McCreary, and I've got this little turbo Zonda repo that I use for kind of demonstration purposes with like some bad code and stuff so we can see this work. So we'll hit done and run. And if the gods are smiling upon me, you cannot run premium tasks. Uh-oh. I do not have Turbo Zonda on my plan. So let's go do that real quick. Let's go to the Shifty plans. We'll go to repos and we'll add Turbo Zonda, and that should be good. We'll go back. Oops. Oh no, I lost all my stuff. All right, I didn't actually run the workbench, so let's do a little demo again. Bear with me. Let's fill this back in. Demo workbench. And what do we say? We got the code format. Boom. And we got the short array syntax. And check out the class constants, all this modernization stuff. Let's try common helpers. And I think we did the facade one. Where was that? We've got facades. And that adding of the package. Oh no, we like that env helper too. Boom. And package. There we go. Lump it. And that was the Spassy Laravel collection macros. Cool. All right, so let's make sure we got everything. Code format, short array syntax, all back. And then we've got the 7.0, which was already coincidentally the good stuff. All right, so we added the repo back. We should be able to hit run now. This is on the queue. So basically, this is going to go out in the background, run on one of the shift workers. It's build number 80. Not that that really matters necessarily, but this will take maybe 20, 30 seconds. Oh, not even. There we go. So it's done. So let's go take a look at this pull request real fast. So we get a nice PR, just like anything else with Shift. Everything's in nice atomic commits, and it applied that whole build that we wanted to do. So let's just kind of take a look at some of these changes. So here's this class constant one. Instead of using those string helpers, it kind of modernized our code that way. We can see it applied the Laravel format. I actually like a little space between the dot operator, but Laravel has it all together, so we can see that the formatter applied. Here's those Illuminate support facades, full reference access instead of the global references. We converted those helpers to shorthand, so all sorts of streamlines here. This env one's actually the one I really, really like. And let's look at these two real fast, and then we'll go look at some code. So we see that it added the Spatie collection macros to our composer file with the appropriate, constraint, and then it converted that env direct thing used in our code with a config file that's custom settings and actually pulled the proper code over to that. So all of the power and automation that like Shift can do. You got something, Frank?
Yeah, could you make it a little bit bigger again?
Oh no. There we go. Huge.
Thanks, man.
Okay, cool. So anyway, this is just an example of one of them that I really like. It allows you to do config caching. So I built this a while back into the Laravel fixer. But again, what I tried to do is go look at all the different shifts and kind of cherry pick all these different cool tasks that people might want to run individually. And that, again, that's all wrapped up in the Workbench. So if we go back, now you noticed earlier that I actually have a plan, so it encouraged me to add this repo to the plan so I could run the quote unquote premium tasks. So the Workbench itself is free, and these first maybe dozen or so common modernization things that can help you clean up your code, even the formatting is free. So you can go and run these and check these out on your own app as a way, again, to help stay modern and promote the growth within the community. Some of the more advanced tasks, like the day-to-day helpful things that are going to save time and help you work with your Laravel project efficiently, those are considered premium, and they're part of your plan. So this is open and available for free, so go check it out. All you got to do is sign into Shift, just connect to whatever repo you're going to shift to or run the Workbench on, and you can start making your own builds and running them to help manage your projects. So let's take a look under the hood. And Frake, if there are any questions, feel free to send them or share them.
If you already have time for questions, there's somebody asking here when all of this will be available. I'm thinking it is available already, right?
It's all available now. I'm continuing to add more tasks as people kind of recommend them. So yeah, if you have cool ideas for tasks, get in here, kind of play with it, see if any already exist. I'm always adding more. So for example, I'm working on automated like short functions and like function closures, and then like null coalesce, like fun stuff for 7.4 that I'm wanting to like adopt in my own projects and like want to run that. And there's all sorts of tools that kind of already do that. But again, I'm trying to create something that's kind of a one-stop day-to-day management tool for your Laravel apps. So this is all available as you see right now. Again, these first 10 or so are free to run, no plan required. But some of these bottom ones that, again, do the fancier stuff are considered premium.
No further questions for now. Some people say that it's awesome, so keep on going, man.
Keep on keeping on. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So let's just take a look. It's all in the build controller, and just we'll get deeper. So Shift is actually the Shift website, which is laravelshift.com, and then there's also the Shift, kind of what I call the engine, and that's kind of where the Shift name comes from. It's not only like Shift your application to newer versions, but it's kind of like automobile related terminology. So you'll see that in my code a lot, like the Shift engine and all sorts of things like that. So, but anyways, pretty straightforward controller. We just kind of see if you have a build, and then we dump out the view, and then.
Hey man, you feel me coming, right? Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Oh man, I already bumped down. I would just bump my whole entire res down, but you said I think that messed up Skype when we did that. So let's just make this like 20.
Hi. Thanks, man.
Hopefully that's better. All right, cool. So anyways, we're just in a nice resourceful controller here, the build controller. So we have this request that comes across, and this is actually pretty dense, and this is one of the reasons I like form requests is we do all sorts of stuff here. So we actually parse the YAML options on the left, and that way we can easily iterate through them over like an array and make sure that there's not some weird name or you fat fingered a constraint or something like, or you left out an option or something like that. So we do some massaging of the data. But what I want to call out for those that have watched our previous streams is this was actually the birth of that try catch in collections. I have this SCS, which is that connection string that we were entering with the colon separated bit. And what this is just a value object. And in the constructor, it basically makes sure that it has all the parts. And if not, it basically throws an exception. So what I can do with nice little collection stuff instead, especially now with the Spatie package, is I can actually just loop over these and do a nice little map. So I can basically refactor this, which we'll kind of do it pseudo live here, but we can say like collect repositories, and then we can map into the SCS class. And with our try catch stuff now, we could actually say try to do this and then catch basically our block that we have down here. So we can actually take this and dump it into our little function here. And we'll close that off. And we'll make sure to import fail to our closure, and we'll just format that. So now instead of this nasty try catch block with this for each thing, I can drop all that off and use a nice smooth collection pipeline just to make that code a little bit cleaner. So again, this was try's not in there because I need to dump the package in, which we added with the workbench. So once I merge that, I'll be able to complete this refactor. But just a nice little thing there just to kind of, again, explore the code. So I think this is all pretty basic stuff. Laravel resource controller, it fires this off to a job, and this kicks us off to the engine. So let's just take kind of the last 5 minutes here or so, and let's bring up the engine, because I think the engine is what people think are pretty cool. So underneath the covers, Shift is actually pretty polyglot of like all sorts of different technologies. It uses everything from Perl to shell scripts. There's actually a really, really tiny Go application that does some file I/O through PHP a little bit faster. So for example, like when I'm actually grepping files, I want to ignore comments to provide like some better accuracy. So I can actually do, I think it's like PHP-W. It like strips out the white space on a source file. And then I can actually get more positive results when I'm actually like searching your code base for certain types of code. But anyways, it all kicks down to a script. PHP is the glue after all. And this just takes a bunch of build arguments and effectively runs the connection, runs some shell script commands. But what's interesting is we have this new Workbench build. And everything's just, all the different shifts are these shiftable classes. And within there, they take a certain bit of data and they effectively do some different things. And each thing has its own set of tasks that it runs. So we can see all tasks here actually comes across from, in this case, the tasks that you specified in your YAML file. So this gets kicked down, I loop back over it, and I call off to a factory to create all the different tasks. So let's just take a look at kind of like one of these tasks, for example. We have code format or adding of a dependency. Maybe that one's a little bit more interesting. So I match it on the name. I return a very specific task. And this task is just a subclass, so we know that we can perform the task. It potentially has a commit message or a no operation. And so Shift is just a collection of tons of these little tasks, which the Workbench now kind of demonstrates, individually. But if we go take a look at something like the Laravel 7 shift, it's the same thing. It's a shiftable class, but it has an array of predefined tasks that are run inside of it. So there's all sorts of things like shifting the JSON resource that changed, looking over Eloquent, doing blade components from the old syntax to the new, changing things to throwable, for example. And these all have the same type of thing underneath. So it's all just kind of like a pipe and filter design pattern. It all just gets kicked down. Those tasks get iterated over. And if they performed something, then the commit is made. If they didn't perform something, the no-op method is called, which normally makes like a comment on the pull request. So that's kind of a really, really high-level overview of Shift all the way down. So we kind of use the Workbench. We saw how, through standard Laravel application, it's validated, it's fired off, it's dispatched to a job. and then it's received by this little build script, which basically takes all those arguments in JSON and turns that into a shift uh, by looping over those tasks and filtering and piping them through a series of lower level tasks which perform actions such as adding dependencies and formatting your code. And it's pretty demystified at that point. Everybody thinks it's pretty magic, but it's really more like brute force, just dozens and dozens and dozens of these tasks, and really trying to like fine grain them. And what's nice is that by breaking it up this way, there's not a lot of um, depth to shift. We really just see 3 or 4 levels. There's not a whole lot of crazy design pattern beyond just kind of that high level pipe and filter. But what's nice is that these tasks are really, really tiny. And there's real similar patterns that I follow. For example, I have a shift facade. And this just all makes it super, super testable. I can make each one of these individual tasks really testable and control kind of the input and output by swapping facades and doing all the things that I'm used to doing in Laravel. So even though this is a completely standalone PHP, no framework dependency application, it still feels like home. You should still see some things in here that look real familiar to me in Laravel, and that's something I really like with any language that I use, is to try to kind of mimic and grok the patterns that are existing somewhere else. It just makes the code feel easier and clearer to work with. So with that, I'll open it up to questions or demo anything else. People, maybe I went too quickly, but I'll kick it to you and get a little drink of my now cold coffee.
Hey, that was great, man. I loved seeing some of the internals. Yeah, as you know, I've used Shift a lot myself, and it's great to see the code that powers it.
Oh yeah,
We have a couple of questions here.
nice.
Liam would like to know, yeah, how you parse the PHP. Do you walk the syntax tree yourself, or do you use something like Rector to
Yeah,
parse that code, or what do you do
that's a good
there?
question. Yeah, I use Nikix PHP parser. I'm trying to find one so I can show you an example. This might, yeah, here we go. So we're using Nikix parser, and then I build these like custom finders. And this is really what Rector does as well. And I've thought about using Rector directly, so I don't have to like reinvent the wheel on some of these things. And I'm looking into that. But I was kind of using this, a couple years ago. So I already have a handful of these. So just kind of looking at this finder, for example, this just goes in to what we know is a form request class, and it basically finds all the different return statements and pulls out the array so I can later do some processing on it. So it just kind of helps me find those occurrences, the value from that expression, starting inlines. So I'm kind of honing in on your file, and from there I can make it a lot simpler by doing like string manipulation. But Rector is a really good one, and like I said, I want to dig into that because they've kind of abstracted some of this Nikic parser stuff. They use it underneath, but they've abstracted it in a way where they've made it a lot easier to kind of work with some predefined actions, if you will. So I think that's pretty cool, and I want to look into that some more. But yeah, early versions of Shift were pretty nasty regular expressions. But probably starting with the 5, 6 shifts, I definitely started using more and more syntax tree parsing. And I would say it's almost all the new shifts are almost all syntax parsing. Like you probably, Freak, I think you even mentioned this on Twitter a while back, maybe in like 5.7 or 5.8 when the cache TTLs changed. And I was able to do the multiplication to make them minutes. You had said like that was really cool or something on
Yeah,
Twitter,
th- it's pretty
which
fantastic.
that was one of the first times I had used the syntax tree, and something like that would not have been possible without it. So that I appreciate that tweet because it gave me kind of motivation to dig in and take more time to make these types of finders and parsers.
Let's do one more question. There's
Sure.
somebody that would like to know. Let me look up the question. Where is it? By Juan. How do you handle error? So when one of your handlers goes nuts, well, what happens then in your code? How do you handle that?
So I'm assuming they probably mean in like the shift code base.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So there's a lot of error handling that happens inside of here. So we can even see something here like unexpected value gets thrown. Um, so at a low level, the builder, when these tasks are getting performed, they're actually wrapped in a try catch as well. And we'll see that if they're super exceptional, in this case, like an unmet requirement, then it actually terminates the application, and that'll trigger the Laravel code base, the Laravel.com, LaravelShift.com code base to actually email you and say, hey, you ran this thing and it had an unmet requirement. So this actually gets bubbled up, this code here, and they all kind of mean something. I think I've got some little commented what they mean. So
That,
the
that
combination of those,
that's a little bit unlike you, I guess.
yeah,
I to have like magic numbers there.
yeah, no, that's true. I guess in my defense, you have to think that this is probably a 5-year-old code base. I mean, I started Shift December of 2015, so it's almost 5 years old. And this file itself is a script. So like whenever I have the combination of those two, like it's really old and it's a script, like a true PHP script, you'll definitely see Yagni get turned to like 10 on the dial. Like this
Yeah.
just kind of calls off some nasty stuff. So I agree that this is probably not the most clean code, but as you dig deeper, you'll see I am using, collection pipelines. The factories are, you'll see more common patterns as you get lower and lower. But the script itself, yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. You live, you learn, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. And Shift
Right.
is a very I mean, again, going back to that automobile analogy, like it's moving constantly. I mean, I'm afraid, honestly, sometimes to mess with this because this script, all the shifts get piped through here. So like one little error here and no one's shift is running, the queue gets backed up, so
Yeah.
it's just, I definitely fall into that trap of any developer where I understand everything that's going on in here, but sometimes I'm pretty nervous to make sweeping
Yeah.
refactors in here unless I feel really, really comfortable.
Yeah, I have a little bit of the same with my product. Oh dear. Um, my worst nightmare is that I make like a change and suddenly it sends notifications to everybody every minute,
Oh yeah,
stuff like that, you know.
yeah,
I guess every SaaS owner has like, yeah, his worries like that.
yeah. Yeah, they may be a little bit illogical, but at the same time, like it's just not worth it. Like a couple years back, I would push shift changes and then go to sleep, and I'd wake up to like, 25 emails of like people who, they were understanding because my audience is devs, so they get it. But like
Yeah,
at the same time, like it's bad experience. So there
yeah,
has to be a really good reason to change that high level script.
yeah, indeed. Okay, man. I think that we're done for now. I thank you for coming on the stream. I think
Yeah,
yeah, it was pretty interesting to see this.
cool. Well,
So
I'll jump in the chat for a little bit and watch Nuno.
okay, okay, and with that talk gone, we're going to take a 5 minute break while I set up Nuno behind the screens. See you in 5 minutes and enjoy the music. So, welcome back. So we had the first talk of Jmac. I just talked a little bit with Nuno. I think everything's ready. I hope you can still hear me. If not, let me know in the chat, and I'll see what I can do. And with that being said, let's bring Nuno in the picture. Hi, Nuno. How are you doing?
What's up, Rick? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I'm glad that you want to come on the stream and talk a little bit about Pest. It seems like Pest is off to a great start. I see you talking about it the whole time on Twitter. I see some nice improvements that are being made. Must feel good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm moving fast with it, and I want it to be the framework of the future. So that's
Yeah,
why I'm putting some effort into it.
yeah, nice. So, what are you going to talk about?
Well,
To in
um,
the talk, just general Pest or any new stuff that you'd like to see?
yeah. So I would like to demo Pest, like the very early features, and then at the end, I'm going to spend like 5 to 10 minutes demoing what's new, comparing to the very first version. So yeah.
Okay, cool, man. Let's go. Let me see if your screen is shared. And from my end, it is all good. So the stage is yours, man.
Thank you, thank you. And guys, everyone in the chat, if you have any questions, if you want to send just good vibes, or I'm going to be watching the chat all the time, so feel free to ask me stuff in the chat, okay? So yeah, my name is Nuno, and I'm here today to speak yet about another open source project of mine, and this one is called Pest. You might have seen this face before on Twitter, and I do speak about Laravel and PHP. I do tweet things about those technologies. But yeah, today I'm here to speak about Pest. And for those who don't know what Pest is an elegant PHP testing framework with focus on simplicity, and it is damn simple. If you have worked with Jest and JavaScript before, you will find some similarities between Jest and Pest. And I can't spend the entire day demoing or talking to you about what Pest is, but I think it's just nicer if I do a demo. And by the way, tell me if the font is okay. I do think it's okay, but anyways, greetings from PHP Rapadura. Thank you, man.
It's okay, man.
Yeah. This is the fresh Laravel application, and Laravel ships by default with PHP Unit. And PHP Unit has been the standard in the industry for a while now. And the way it works is you need a namespace, a class that extends something, and then you need a public function to actually see your first test. When you run this in the terminal, you get an output that pretty much looks like this. You see PHP Unit by Sebastian, of course. Then you see 2 points representing the 2 tests, and also a green status means that your test suite runs successfully. Now, what I wanted with Pest is really challenging what we have today in PHP, really challenging PHP Unit in the way that it creates tests, but also the output we see from the terminal. And when we go, for example, to the Laravel routes web, you scroll down and you see elegance in this routes file. And the elegance is that if you want to get something and give a view, it just works like that. 3 lines, route get this base URL and give the view welcome. Boom. It just works, is very fast, and it would be a little bit weird if you had to create a class just to do these kind of things. Now, I wanted a little bit of this elegance in my test suite, so I created Pest. And to get started with Pest, the only thing you really have to do is type composer require pest php/pest. Once you do it, and I already have done it, just to make sure it works, the only thing you have to do is type pest. Now, take a look. Even though I have a test suite, which is class-based API, as you can see here, written with PHP Unit, my pest command still works. And that happens because Pest is a progressive testing framework. It actually works with your current PHP Unit classes. So here I know that 2 tests are passing. I know the description of the test, but I also have a nice recap at the end. In the format, I think it's more verbose, more human readable. But let me show you another example. So here I'm going to assert false. So I'm going to actually introduce a test that will fail. If I run this with PHP Unit, you probably have seen this output too many times before. I see again that PHP Unit was created by Sebastian. I already know that, but I see it again. Then I see a failure right here, and also the description why my tests are failing. Now, this is nice, right? This is acceptable, but with Pest, we challenge this a little bit to go more further. So the way it works is that Pest tells me that there is a failing test here, and then gives me this really nice snippet that points me to the right direction. So here I know exactly what's the code is failing. So the output is really made for humans, so I really like it. And of course, you can pass this option. Let me just clear my screen. You can pass this option, stop and failure, just like in PHP Unit, if you want the test to fail and stop at the first failure. So here I have the same snippet, but also know that one test is failed and one is pending. So pretty nice. And I get this question quite often, which is if you lose functionalities when you are using Pest compared with PHP Unit. And the answer is no. Pest is built on top of PHP Unit. PHP Unit is great, so you can use all the features that you like in PHP Unit, but with Pest. All right. So let's now migrate the way that PHP unit uses to create tests, but to Pest this time. So the rule is the only thing you have to do is copy the content of your test, remove all of this boilerplate, and type test example. Then you pass a closure which contains your test. And that's it. You run this now in the terminal, and you will see that, oops, I need to put through here, and you will see that it just works as expected. Now, comparing 3 lines with all the boilerplate we had before is a little bit smaller, I would say. But Pest takes this a little bit further. So one thing you can do is that you can remove the this calls right here and just leave assert true. And boom, it just works in the same way. The assert true is available on the fly, and you can use it without using the this variable. Now I'm going to demo to you my favorite feature about Pest, which is something I call higher order tests. And that is only about that if you don't pass a closure or a function, you can just assert or chain the assertions. And it works in the same way. Bam, just one line to represent all the boilerplate you had before. It's really small, really clean, and this is the way I like to use Pest, is keep my test suite as clean as my code. All right, so let me check my notes here. Okay, so one cool thing as well is that probably in PHP unit, sometimes you just need to use annotations or methods that are a little bit big. So in Pest, you can actually chain the test function to actually call stuff such as skip, for example. If you want to skip this test because you want to do it later, you can just call skip. If you want to skip because freak, doesn't make any sense, but because of that, you have this nice description just after the skip information, which is quite nice. And also another method that you can chain is the datasets. Now, in PHP unit, for example, if you want to test an email validation, you probably will do something like this. Email validation, assert not empty, then you would pass an email to assert it is not empty. And the way it works is that you need to actually have a data provider. Like that. And then the data provider needs to have a function, get emails, and that will be on your class in PHP unit, of course, right? So here you need to create the function get emails, and then you would return the emails. So let's return Nuno and freak. Oops, and freak. I just leaked your email, freak. Hope it's fine.
It's okay, it's okay.
It's okay. Well, so this is the way it works in PHP unit. Now let me show you the way it works in Pest. The only thing you have to do is copy the data set like this. And then again, you can remove all the boilerplate and just type test this with this information. And boom. It works exactly the way you expect. So I'm going to call the test email validation twice with 2 different emails. And also in the output, you can see as well that the email validation has been tested with my own email, but also tested with Freak Easy email. Nice, quite nice, I think. But so far, all the features that showed to you, they are kind of unit level, right? They are base unit level features. But I want to show you as well how it works with, for example, a feature test of Laravel that actually needs the framework. So here I'm going to open the feature example test, and this test is a little bit different from the PHP unit base test. And the difference is the test case class from Laravel actually bootstraps the framework. It needs the database, for example. So here, to migrate this kind of tests, same thing. You just copy the content of the test, you remove all of this boilerplate, and you type it as a welcome page. You pass a closure, and you put the contents of your test inside of it. You run the test suite, and as you can see, it works exactly as expected. But now you can go crazy. You can do high order tests if you want. So let's remove the function and call assert status and get directly. And boom, It just works very, very small and minimal. Like, this is the way I like to have my tests in Pest, like very, very small. You probably are asking a little bit about how the hell this works. How Pest knows that this test is actually needing the Laravel framework behind the scenes, how this get method is somehow injected. And the way it works is that when you type composer require Pest PHP, it actually creates this Pest file on the root of your test folder. And this Pest file is really like a configuration file that you can specify how your test suite works. So here it says, hey Pest, please use the test case within the feature folder. So Pest knows that all the tests that live inside feature, they actually need to bootstrap the framework and need to use a test case class. So that's the way it works. And here you can do stuff such as group. I can say my group is Spassy. And then I can just call group Spassy. And yeah, I'm just running the feature folder because I specify that the group Spassy is in the feature folder. Quite nice. Now, let's try to a more complicated scenario where I want to test that if I have users, for example. So the way it works, it will be very similar to a PHP unit test. You just say factory app user class create. So this will create a user in our database, and then I would probably do something like assert database as the users and the user with the ID 1. So if I run my test suite, did you turn on your mic, Freak? Yeah, I think you did. It's fine. Well, if you run this kind of test, Pest will tell you, oh, I don't have any table with the name users. Now, this is normal because in Laravel, if you don't include the refresh database trait, it will not work this way. So the only thing you have to do is really go to this Pest file and say like this: hey Pest, please use the database refresh within the feature folder. So all the tests that live within the feature folder will actually bootstrap the database as well. So I can now run my test suite and we'll see that it has users. It works as expected. I can, for example, copy paste this test, just put below, because yes, you can put multiple files, multiple tests in the same file. And by the way, let me show you something in the progress that if you run this test right now, Pest gives you really nice feedback on the console saying, hey, this test already exists in this file name, so be careful. So here I can just say it has users too. I run my test suite and now it works. It has users and it has users too. Quite nice. I can refactor right now. I can just copy this factory, for example, because I'm using it twice, right? So it's before each test. So I can just copy this and remove it here as well and just call before each. Before each, just create the user. Oops. I run my test suite, and it works as expected. The before each, you can see it as your current setup method, but written in a readable way, because it's more verbose, I would say. So before each, create the user, and yeah, the test suite is working as expected. And now you can go crazy. And this is really the way I like to use Pest, is that I like to go crazy and make it really, really minimal. So I'm going to do high order tests here and really make it small, like that. Bam. Really small, really minimal. It can fit my screen right now, and I had a huge padding between lines. So yeah, as you can see, it works as expected. So yeah, so before showing you, so far I have just showed you what is in Pest since the very first version. All of these features that I've just showed to you, they are in Pest since the very, very beginning. Now I'm going to show you what is kind of new in the new version. Actually, just before, I'm going to show you the coverage. That's still in the original version. So, for example, if you have used PHP unit to show the coverage, you need to export it to a file, you need to export it to a different format, and then you need to read it or try to understand it. I don't like it. I personally, I prefer to see everything in my console in a very beautiful way. So coverage gives you a report like this. Bam. Just in the console, you can see everything about coverage in your application. So here, for example, I note that the coverage have 66% of coverage, but also I know that, for example, my base controller is being tested 100%. Also that my kernel class is probably missing testing in the line 28. I mean, I don't care too much about coverage, but for those who like coverage, this is quite nice, I think, right? So yeah, so this is all features from the very first version of Pest. What I'm going to show you starting from now will be new stuff that is already on the 0.2 version, which is already silently released, so tell no one. So let me show you what is new. Well, first thing is new is penning tests. So, well, sometimes you are developing and you just don't care about tests at the moment. So you want to do it later. So one thing you can do is that, for example, imagine that you are building your own page and you just want to test it later. So the only thing you have to do is really type it has welcome page. Bam, that's it. You run your test suite and Pest will tell you, oh, my tests are passing, but just be careful because in the home page, you are actually missing assertions. So it tells you that, okay, you have this test kind of incomplete. You need to do it later. So this is penning tests, a new feature in the 0.2 version. Another thing new is the Laravel plugin. And a small disclaimer, Pest works by default in Laravel, even without this plugin. This plugin is some add-ons, something on the top of the base Pest installation. So what this plugin does is actually for people who like the functional way of writing tests. So if I pass a closure here, and I just do, for example, get a base URL and assert OK, my test will obviously pass, and this is the base features of Pest. But with the plugin, you can actually remove this variable right here and import the function get, and bam. So your test comes a little bit more simpler, but you need to import this get. And yes, you can use functions in PHP like that. I'm pretty sure that some people don't know this. So yeah, you can create functions in the file, namespace those functions, and then use them. So you can just call the get like that. So it's very, very small. Obviously, you can import multiple features from Laravel. For example, if you want to import the post, you can, for example, make a post on the base URL. Probably the post route doesn't exist in the base URL, so the status will be 405, I think. Bum. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it works like that. Quite nice. So this is Laravel plugin, also a new feature available in Pest 0.2. Next feature is tests without description, and I have been very verbose on Twitter about this feature because it's probably my favorite thing ever. I'm not good with names. Personally, I never know what to put in my description of my test. So if I could avoid them, that would be so nice, right? So check it out. The new feature in this Pest 0.2 is that you can't just remove the description. Like that. You just leave the assertions below and check it out. Boom. Pest will automatically generate a description for you. So here I know that it's trying to get this base URL and assert it's okay. Bam, my test pass. And then I'm going to post in this and assert the status is 405. Bam. So you don't even need a description to write tests. I mean, tests couldn't be more fast than this. You don't have an excuse to say you don't have time for tests because right now it's really, really easy. Of course, if, for example, I fail a test here, this is an important thing. If, for example, I call this and expect to see a status 300, this test will fail. How Pest behaves is that it will actually fail the first test, but still run the second one. So the fact that this test is kind of failing or blocking, it doesn't mean that Pest doesn't run the second one, which is quite nice. Okay, so I'm gonna rerun my test suite, and everything is working okay. And finally, not finally, I have two more plugins to show you. I want to show you as well the snapshots plugin. And Freak, I think you know this one quite well. All right, so here I'm gonna just type, it has a welcome page again. Welcome page. I'm gonna pass closure. I'm gonna remove this. Now, the snapshots plugin is allow you to do snapshot testing. Now, for those who don't know what snapshot testing is, it's basically making sure that things don't change between tests. So imagine that you want to make sure that when you visit the base URL, you want to make sure that that page never changes. You want to make sure that UI never changes. The way it will work probably in PHP unit is that you do response, this get, the base URL, and then you do get content. Then you would need something like assert equals. You would pass like the content of the base URL page, could be a little bit bigger than this, I think. And then you would pass the response. You want to make sure that the response of the base URL or the content of the response doesn't change never again. So this can become a little bit messy because to format this string, it takes time. Even if you have like a huge response with the header, the footer, and whatever, it can take tons of time. What snapshot testing allows you to do is that you don't actually pass the expectation. You just say assert matches snapshot. You run your test suite. Oops, I needed this here. You run the test suite. And the first time this assertion will run, what it will do is that it will create a snapshot for you. So the snapshot is here on the left. I'm going to open this folder, call it snapshots. And the snapshot file contains what the response is in the very first time the Pest visits the page. So here, for example, I can assert, yeah, this is indeed the page I want to see all the time, and I do expect this page to never change. Now I'm going to go to my feature test. I'm going to rerun my test suite. And as you can see, it tells me, yeah, it has a welcome page. It renders correctly. The UI didn't change. Now, if I imagine that, for example, you do a new feature and you actually deploy a bug, and the bug displays an error on the response right here. I'm going to rerun my test suite and check it out. Pest tells me, oh, this test has failed. Previously, I had this amazing page, but right now it's showing an error. I'm going to not allow you to deploy because you have a bug to fix. So yeah, it's a very nice way to find regressions. All right, so this is snapshot plugin. And finally, one last thing. Yeah, your mic is again on, Freak. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make too much noise, but it's fine. Yeah. Freak, your mic is on, I think.
Yeah, I have a technical problem, so I'm using my phone as a camera, but somebody called me. So sorry about that.
Okay. It's fine. So one last plugin I want to show you, which is Livewire, man. I don't know about you guys, but I'm using Livewire all the time. It's just awesome, and I wanted to make it awesome for Pest. Now, so how do you test Livewire components? First of all, it will work in the same way as PHP unit. So you would say something like, it can be incremented. Right? And then what would you do is that you will call Livewire, call blah, 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 blah. But the way it works in Pest is that you can just do this Livewire. You pass your component, which will be, for example, app, HTTP, I guess, Livewire counter. I'm going to import this so it makes a little bit clean. Yep. So you would call, and then you would call like increment, and then you expect to see 1. So assert C1. So this component is a Livewire component that starts with the number 0, and then when you call increment, you expect to see 1, which is a basic example of Livewire, right? So in Pest, yeah, it works this way. You can just call the Livewire method on the this variable, of course, you can also import the function pest livewire, and you can remove now the this, so it still works as expected. And now the best part. You can again go crazy, remove the description, and just leave livewire counter class call increment and assert C1. Boom. Livewire app HTTP counter call increment and assert C1. Exactly how I expect to see the description of this test with a test without description. So I can actually create livewire tests without even pass a description. Quite nice, I think. So yeah. So finally, we also have improvements on the documentation, which I'm going to scroll here, and probably you should see the website of Pest. So Pest have improved the documentation a lot since the very first release. So if you haven't checked Pest website for a while now, I do recommend you to check the menu here and check with all the pages that are new. We have guides for PHP Unit, Laravel, Symfony, Pest from scratch if you are doing something from scratch. We have new plugins, so make sure you check this. And one of the guides is creating plugins. So one of the new features of this 0.2 version is that we have created a plugin template that allow you to create plugins for Pest. So you can extend Pest with new functions. You can also extend Pest with new output, for example. The coverage, for example, is the plugin as well that ships by default. So you can add output, you can add arguments. So make sure you visit this page if you want to be a plugin creator. Yeah, so it's end the demo. I'm going to just finish with some notes here. We have developed the Laravel plugin, as I have showed to you, the plugin snapshot as well. The plugin Watch is under development. So if you have used Jest, you know what Watch is. Watch is basically you run your source code, you save, and bam, your test suite runs automatically on the side, which is quite nice. I use it a lot in JavaScript. And the next things are on the pipe is really educational content, videos, and make sure people really adopt Pest, because I really want Pest to be the framework of the future. I want to move fast right now and make sure the adoption grows and Pest is here to stay. So it's open source. Feel free to start today. You can visit the documentation website, pestphp.com. If you have a phone, point your phone to this QR code right now because you will be redirected to the Pest webpage. And yeah, here we have some codes from Taylor, but also from Freak. Yeah, I hope you enjoy Pest as much I enjoyed to build it. And thank you so much for being that side watching my talk. Thanks, Freak. I thought nobody remembered that. Yeah, I hope. I mean, I really like Pest, man. I was using Pest before actually building this very brand new version, man. I have built a POC like last year, and I noticed that I was using that POC all the time. So why not make a beautiful documentation and invest a little bit on it?
Oh, no, it seems that my mic was off when I did like the question and the story. So I'm going to repeat that a little bit. So what I was telling to Nuno, I hope everybody hears me now, is that Nuno wrote like his a year in review last year, and at the end he says, next year I want to make an impact in PHP. I want to make something big that changes PHP for the better. And I think that Nuno is really doing it.
I hope people can hear you because I can hear you, but apparently on the chat, I'm not sure people can hear you unless you have a delay in.
Damn.
Can people hear Freak? Oh, you can hear you now. Sounds fine now. Okay.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, there was a problem. Somebody phoned me while the stream was busy, and macOS tries to be like intelligent, and he's switching like microphones, and it was like So next time I need to switch off the cellular connection so that doesn't happen again.
Okay.
So I think that we're done for now. Thank you, Nuno, for being on the stream.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And see you later, man.
See you later. Bye.
Okay, that was it for this little online meetup. I hope that you liked the format. I'm going to hang around for 10 minutes in the chat. And yeah, probably we are going to do this again in the near future. Thanks for watching, everybody, and see you next time.